Good morning. How everyone doing tonight? This morning, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Sermon Jazz Spiritual. I'm here to give you a word on tonight, and the topic gonna be let His people go. The Egyptian, will know that I am the Lord, and when I stretch out my hand against Egypt, and I will bring, my people out. So the story gonna come from Exodus chapter 7, verse 1 through 24. Then the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, you know, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. So God made Moses like God to Pharaoh. In other words, he made Moses powerful. In other words, he made Moses a powerful person, who deserves to be listened to, because see, Pharaoh don't want to listen to him. Because, Moses lived under him. Moses lived there. So now Moses coming along with this powerful word, from God. And Pharaoh feel like he don't want to listen to him. You used to live here, under me. So now God saying, God made Moses like God to Pharaoh. In other words, he made Moses a powerful person who deserves to be listened. So Pharaoh himself was considered a god. And so he recognized Moses, as one of his peers. Now he refuses to give, into Moses, show, however, that he did not fear, to inferior to Moses. So now, he's saying Moses, delivering this word from God, showing all these miracles and signs and stuff, So and at the same time, he still don't want to listen to Moses because he know where Moses come from, right under him. So God says to Moses, you are to say everything I command you, in your brother Aaron to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelite go, out of his country. So God gonna keep on pressuring them. You got to keep on going to Pharaoh, for him to let my people go. So God told Moses and Aaron to go back to Pharaoh, to let his people out of his country. But God said he will harden Pharaoh's heart. Now God telling them to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. But at the same time, God is hardening Pharaoh's heart to not let him go. Because see, God got to get his glory out of this stone. So God said he will harden Pharaoh's heart and God will multiply his sign and he will not listen. Because it's going to take a long time for Pharaoh to really let them go. Because God going to constantly harden his heart for him not to let him go. So God will lay his hands on Egypt with his mighty act of judgment. So Egyptian would know that I am the Lord. And when I stretch out, his hand, you know, when God stretched out his hand against Egypt, he will bring the Israelite out. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded them to do. Every time God commanded them to go to Pharaoh, to tell him to let my people go. So when Moses, spoke to Pharaoh, now he was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 years old. So they was in their little age, and Moses had to lead all these people to their promised land. Just gonna be years coming. That's why when he do die, I think Moses gonna be like 100 some years. But he already started out. I don't know. I thought when it was at the bush, he was like in his early age. But now he pursuing his purpose, and he's 80 years old. So we see that God commanded Moses to speak to Pharaoh to let his people go, but God will harden his heart so he won't let them go. Now we're gonna look at Exodus chapter 7, verse 8 to 13, where Aaron's staff become a snake. See, they performing these miracles and signs, for Pharaoh, only for Pharaoh and the Israelites, to see, that I am God. And he gonna show his power, so they can believe who he is. So now God is telling, if Pharaoh wants to see miracles, he told Aaron, take your staff. He said, throw it down on the ground before Pharaoh, and it will become a snake. Moses and Aaron did just what God had commanded them, and Aaron, you know, he threw his staff on the ground right in front of Pharaoh and his officer, and it became a snake. The same thing Moses did, before. So he having Aaron to do the same thing because Aaron had the staff in his hand. So Pharaoh then summoned his wise men and the Egyptian magician, also did the same thing by their secret art. So they he brought his magician. They do magic and all this kind of stuff. So they looking at Aaron threw his staff on the floor and it turned to a snake. And they're like, well, let me try, let me do it too. So Pharaoh think that was magic. He think that was magic. And that was the power of God. So that's why he brought his magic and magician and all this things up in there. Because he thought it was magic. Pharaoh thought it was magic, not knowing that was the power of God. So now Pharaoh got his magician, and each one threw down their staff, and it became a snake. You know, and they think they did that. God did that. Because they know they've been having that sick for the longest. They know they could never throw that on the floor and it turned into a snake. So their staff turned into a snake. But Aaron's staff swallowed up their staff. So now Pharaoh's heart become hard and he will not listen to them. Just as the Lord has said. Because God had told him, go do this and go do that. But Pharaoh still will not listen to y'all. He still will not let my people go. So God had them to perceive, that miracle, for Pharaoh, to listen. But Pharaoh did not want to listen because God hardened his heart. And when magicians threw their staff, it turned into a snake, but God had Aaron's staff to swallow theirs up. To keep them, God gonna keep on showing his power. They think it's magic, but God keeps showing his power. Okay, y'all threw y'all one down and turned to a snake. So he had Aaron's staff to swallow it up. So we're going to look at Exodus chapter 7, verse 14 through 24, the pledge of blood. Now, God about to turn the water into blood. But we're going to see that God is a compassion God. He's a gracious God, that he loved, he cared for Aaron, he cared for the Israelite and the Egyptian when he turned that water into blood. So now God having Moses, God helped Moses and Aaron performing signs and miracles. For the first staff, turn into a snake. So now if he about to turn the staff into having to strike the staff, turn the water into blood. So God said to Moses, and Pharaoh's heart is withholding. He refused to let the people go. So God said, go to Pharaoh, in the morning, and as he goes out to the Nile River, so he must do this every morning. In the morning, as he goes to the Nile River, take in your hand the staff that changed to a snake. The same staff that turned into the snake. God telling him, take that with you. Pharaoh always go to the Nile River in the morning time. So you're going to follow him. So the Lord said, let Pharaoh, to let God people, tell him to let my people go. So they may worship me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh had not listened. Pharaoh still not listened. But now he will know that I am the Lord. The staff in his hand. I will strike the water of the Nile River and it would be changed into blood. Now he about to change that water into blood. They will not have no water to drink. But God gonna have sympathy on the Egyptian, and have them to dig some water. God got compassion on people. No matter how evil people is, God still love them. So even the fish in the river, will die. That's just how powerful that gonna be. The river it also was stink. The Egyptian would not, be able to drink the water. They will not be able to drink the water, but they're gonna keep on trying to find little spots to find water, and God gonna allow them to find some water. Oh, so now the second sign, a miracle, God had turned the river into blood. So where you cannot even drink the water. So now God told Aaron, take your staff, stretch out your hand over the water of Egypt, over the stream and canals, and will turn the blood will be everywhere. He telling him to do it here, do it at, this blood gonna be everywhere because he don't want Pharaoh to go try to find nowhere else to try to get no water. So the blood will be everywhere. In Egypt, even in the vessels of the wood and the stone. So Moses did what God had told him to do, and they see their staff, water turn into blood. They see the water turn into blood. Pharaoh's heart, because his heart, is still hardened. God is still hardening his heart. So God gonna keep on showing all these powerful signs, all these powerful miracles, and he gonna keep on hardening Pharaoh's heart to proceed, to continue on proceeding his power. So all the Egyptians they dig along the river to get drinking water because they could not drink the water in the river. So this a part here where God have compassion on the Egyptians. He had compassion on them. Now God had put the whole river everywhere for the water. But God allowed them to dig along by the river, and they had found a little spot where they had some water was coming out. So God was concerned for the Israelites and Egyptian as well. Due to God's miracles, there was no water. The whole river was filled out with blood. So God turned the river into blood, but God, who is a compassionate and a gracious God, He cared for the Egyptians, as well as the Israelites. The Egyptian was able to dig along the Nile River to get drinking water because they could not drink the water of the river. They had to find somewhere near the river to find water. So the Egyptian would know that I am the Lord, and when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelite out, so Moses demand, let his people go. God kept, halting Pharaoh's heart to not listen and not let the people go. So these signs that God wanted Pharaoh to know that I am the Lord. And when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring my people out, God was just as concerned with the Egyptians as he was with the Israelites. So God wanted to free the Israelites, from the cruelty bondage, and the covenant. He also remembers the covenant that he did with Abraham. So God wants to release, the Israelites from slavery, from bondage, the covet, the captivity that they in. God wants to release them from that. God also remember the covenant he did with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, so God wanted everyone, the Egyptian and the Israelite, to experience His power. Because you remember the Israelite didn't believe in me at one time. They didn't want to listen to nothing Moses had to say. So when God's showing His power, He's showing it for Egyptian, Pharaoh, and the Israelite. And that's His people, and they didn't believe. So He doing all these miracles to experience His power as the one true God. So God showing His power to let them know that's one true God. Because Pharaoh makes his own God. Pharaoh make his own image of a God. So God is letting them know there's only one true God. Your God that you have an image of, they cannot do miracles. They cannot do none of the stuff that God is doing. So God turned the Nile River into blood. Excuse me. He proves that their creator God was powerless against his might. Excuse me. Oh, stop. The God wanted everyone, the Egyptian and the Israelites, to experience his power, to the one true God. Now God turned the Never river into blood, and he proved that their creator, that his image that would they serve as supposed to be their God, God letting them know he's the only true God. That your God cannot do miracles, cannot do power. So he proved that their creation, their God, their image cannot do the things that God can do. God let them know that your God is powerless, against his might. He let them know their God is powerless, against his might. Because he proven all the power and everything that he is doing, he is the only true God that can do this. He is the God of the creator of this world. Your image of a God that Pharaoh praised, cannot do the power that God can do. Now, God still wants everyone to know that he is the only true God. He showed his power, through the events and circumstances of our life each and every day. You know, you know, um, God showed his power even when we don't know. You know, before I realized I was chosen. When I look back in my life, all the circumstances, all the situation, everything that I had went through back then, you know, God was still in my life. He was still showing power. He was still making things happen. So God showed power in our life also. You know, and we have to recognize that that's the only true God. That's the only true master that's over this world. Our life and our future always gonna be in God's hands. So God, that's the story of let his people go. Showing the signs. He not only showing the signs, for him to let the people go. God was showing his power. Because God know Pharaoh always had image of God that they praise. And God don't like us praise nothing else but him. So he's showing his power to let Pharaoh know that this image that you keep on creating as a God, it cannot, is powerless. Cannot do the power that God can do. So, and then also the Israelites, they didn't believe Moses at first about God. So a lot of time God is showing his power in front of Pharaoh, the Egyptian, and the Israelite. Showing them a power. That I am. That's all he said through the practice. I am who I say I am. And everybody else that tried to have an image of God, God said, what he said right here, they're powerless against his might. That is powerless against his might because they can't perceive no power. That's just like that's Pharaoh gonna bring his magicians in there. That do magic. They thought what Moses had perceived, what Aaron had perceived with the snake, they thought that was magic. That was called power. So God, they throw their stick down and turn into snake. But then God did a little power and had Aaron stick to swallow their snakes up. Swallow their stuff up because they didn't have no stuff at all. So every time they do something, God gonna show his power against that. To let them know y'all powerless against his power. You bringing magician and all magic and all that, you think that was magic. That was power. So just a story of Moses. She still got the gonna keep on demanding for Pharaoh to let God people go. This is the beginning of his plan. It's gonna be a while before Pharaoh let him go, because God gonna keep on halting his heart, and every time God halts in his heart, he's not gonna listen. He's not gonna let the people go, and God gonna keep showing his power. He gonna show his power so they ain't gonna help but to believe that he's the only true God. you know, and this just the beginning, you know that everyone in that town, in the nation, gonna know that God has swept all of them under that Red Sea. You know, when God said you're not gonna see them no more, they're not gonna see them no more. You know, so we did at the beginning of God's plan. You know, we at the first stage of keep on um demanding Pharaoh to let God people go. You know, so that's all the word I have for you on today. And I see you on the next video. Have a blessed, safe morning.